yes, yes, our good friend, the six-sided ring, is now gone. He's now gone the way of the dodo, it looks like, and probably will never return. Sad, sad day. I actually liked the six-sided ring. It was one of the things about TNA I actually enjoyed and actually thought that it was a pretty good idea myself. But I know some people didn't, so I'm sure some people probably don't care and all of this. But, yes, this is my review of Genesis. So let's get started. As, you know, this was supposed to be the new start of the new beginning, the aptly named Genesis. And so they started, and Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff came out, talked about a bunch of new changes, stood in the middle of the new four-sided ring, and got a "We want six sides" chant, to which Hogan, yelled back and said, this company hadn't gotten anywhere by doing this, hadn't gotten anywhere with gimmick stuff, and blah, 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 and the fans pretty much just shit on it. This has caused some controversy, I have seen, so I thought I would comment on it, that some fans like this and some other things as well, talking about the fan, and through this whole pay-per-view, the fans were pretty much crap, I will admit. But I think, there's been a lot of talk by people that say that, TNA needs to get out of the Impact Zone because they need to get away from these fans, because these fans don't do a good job with the crowd. They worry too much about being part of the show, except unlike, the original ECW or even a lot of the ROH crowds, not all the ROH crowds, because some of the ROH crowds are the same way, but aren't quick-witted, aren't creative, and are just kind of blah and end up taking away from the matches. So, and I agree with that. The problem I have with it is, where are you going to go? Because when TNA leaves the Impact Zone, what often ends up happening is they get fans that are either almost exactly the same, and sometimes worse. At least I can't remember, the last time that the Impact Zone started ECW chants. Maybe they've done it in the last couple of months. I don't know. I can't remember it. But usually when they go up to the East Coast, that almost always happens, at least when they were doing pay-per-views on the East Coast. And where are you going to go? I mean, it's one of those things where I would say, kind of where are you going to go? I do think they need to get out of the Impact Zone and at least somewhere where they at least have to charge people to see the show. I think that might bring in some better fans, but maybe. But I don't know. I don't know what you do, because they don't draw good enough for their house shows, and even for a live Monday night show, for cost cutting reasons, you can't be doing it in different cities every week. So, it's one of those catch-22 things. But that happened, so which was kind of interesting and crazy. Another good chant of the night was when Brooke Hogan was center stage for almost the entire show, and did get kind of, I guess, loosely involved in some of the matches. She had interaction with some of the wrestlers, which kind of scares me. And they did show her a lot. They showed Hogan's girlfriend not so much. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty crazy, because she was definitely into it, trying to, jumping up and down, being crazy, being just overly obnoxious, to the point where the fans actually started chanting, Brooke sit down, Brooke sit down. It was kind of funny, and honestly, yeah, I won't go there. Yeah, it was just kind of there. But we started the night with the Amazing Red and his mystery opponent, which wound up being Brian Kendrick, who came out, and they had I wouldn't say a good match. It was like an almost good match, because it was kind of a little slower than I would have liked. Also, the ring is a bit, I don't know, the ring looked small to me, and also the guardrails were far too close to the ring, particularly for a lot of the high-flying stuff that happens in TNA. So there was that, and it kind of hurt the match in my opinion. Also, the fact that Kendrick did a lot of ground wrestling, which I don't think anyone was really ready for. It wasn't a bad match. It just kind of just was there, and just wasn't just quite what at least I expected. And not that I thought it was bad. It just wasn't really good either. It was just kind of okay. But there was that. Then we had second show of the night. We had Sean Morley come out and take on Christopher Daniels. Morley looked like he was supposed to be the face. Fans shit on him, and were, of course, chanting for Christopher Daniels, Like, what do you expect TNA? This is like when the fans turned on Hogan against Jarrett. Kind of what do you expect? These are the TNA guys, and these people are seen as outsiders, and you really think that the fans are going to cheer these guys over the TNA guys? Kind of strange, kind of weird in my opinion. Went out. Morley didn't look good, but he didn't look bad either. He was just looked kind of out of shape and a little rusty. And Daniels, I would say didn't look bad with him, but it was just kind of there and not a good match. Daniels, Morley went over Daniels, which the fans did not like at all. This was just kind of there, and overall, like a lot of the night, just felt flat. This entire show to me, there was some good stuff on here, yet the overall show to me just felt very flat. I'm sure people will say, oh, that's just the TNA hater in you talking. Maybe it is, I don't know, but I know to me the show did not feel good and was just kind of there, and did the parts were better than the sum of the pay-per-view, if that makes any sense. I wouldn't recommend this pay-per-view, but it did have some good stuff on it, so it was just, very strange. Then we had ODB versus Tara. Not sure what happened. Not going to speculate on what happened. I'm sure by the time this video is up, people will know what happened, and then we'll get like 500 comments on, people talking about what happened that I didn't talk about on the show. Like, nobody knows because they can't read the other 500 comments before. ODB versus Tara. Looked like something happened to ODB. Maybe her implant exploded. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe just a bad match. I don't know. But this was not a good match. Tara went over real quick and not good, and just was not a good match. Definitely not a good match. Then we had British Invasion versus Matt Morgan Hernandez. This was, my opinion, surprisingly good. I didn't have a lot of expectations for this match, maybe why I thought it was good, but they went out there. British Invasion hasn't really been used much on TV, so I don't know what that means for them. But, Matt Morgan Hernandez did look good together. They definitely were used as a power team, which is kind of cool. And, hey, it wasn't that bad. So I was, not that it wasn't that bad, it was actually pretty good. They did a lot of good power moves, and I think it's a good use of Matt Morgan and Hernandez in that, it allows them to push them without, them being in the main event kind of picture, which is kind of overly crowded, it seems, at the moment. Then we had Desmond Wolfe taking on the Pope, and this was very good, as I think everyone probably thought it was going to be. They gave them time, they let them go out. Probably wasn't the match I expected, but was a little slower than I expected. I'm sure they told them kind of in an old school way, don't go out there and necessarily steal the show, because they wanted the main event to kind of be the main event. But they did go out there. They did put on definitely the best show by far of the night up until this point. It was really good. Lots of near falls. Kind of the finish kind of came out of nowhere, but it wasn't so out of nowhere that it hurt the match. It just kind of was there. Though Desmond did debut a new valet, which, as far as I could tell, they didn't talk about at all on the pay-per-view. So there was that. Then we had Beer Money taking on Kevin Nash and Sean Waltman because Scott Hall decided he didn't want to do the match. He didn't feel like he was in shape enough to do the match, so they picked Sean Waltman. That's a good thing. This was okay. It still wasn't as good as I would have liked. It felt like it dragged. It felt like a match that was there. I'm sure some people probably enjoyed this more than me. Some people probably didn't enjoy this as much as me, because I think it was just one of those type of matches where either you liked it or you didn't. So there you go. Beer Money did go over, though, so that was nice and good to see and a bit surprising, so that was good. Then Abyss came out, and Abyss had already attacked Bobby Lashley, because Bobby Lashley has a fight in 13 days, and I'm sure, Strikeforce didn't want him wrestling on this pay-per-view. So that happened. They told Abyss he'd be taking on somebody new. Came out. It was Mr. Anderson, the former Mr. Kennedy. He did his shtick. His shtick got way over. Was probably the biggest, maybe up to this point, the most over thing of the night, other than the six-sided ring. Imagine that. And so went out, and then he went out and had a bad match with Abyss. Wasn't very good. the fans were chanting overrated, though he did react in a kind of funny way, in my opinion, with doing big O's when they chanted overrated. So that was kind of interesting. But there was that, so it was pretty much that. And speaking of being over, I don't mean to like sidetrack this, but I thought this was funny. The stream, I'll admit, I streamed this. TNA didn't have enough time to, build this pay-per-view. I didn't have enough time to order this pay-per-view. Sorry. And but anyways, I'm on the stream, and in the chat stream, there was somebody with this account's name, Tslay1974, being a complete dick, flaming the page, being just a complete asshole, and all of this stuff. It wasn't me. I found that funny watching, but I guess that's a good thing. I guess I'm over enough now to the internet public where I guess people feel the need to go to chat streams, pretend to be me, and try to be complete dicks so people will turn against me. Wow. Really? Wow. What kind of dickless asshole does that? Really. Anyways, back to the pay-per-view. After that, we had Kurt Angle versus AJ Styles. They gave them a very, very long match. Let them go out there. Ric Flair eventually came down. Match started off kind of slow. Eventually got picked up. I thought this match, well, I'll say this. The match itself was probably not better than the match that was on Impact, but the match at Impact to me had problems because I didn't like the way it ended. I thought they were doing too many. The ending sequence of the match of Impact I didn't like, and also the commercials, in my opinion, did hurt it. Sometimes it doesn't hurt, but I thought it really, really hurt this match, the way that the commercials hit. And on top of that, the way that Flair was used, unlike here where Flair walked out again, was setting at ringside, ended up getting involved in the match, pulling the ref out, which wasn't that big of a surprise because Hebner was he was too much. He was like too in place. You definitely see it coming. And so Flair pulled him out so AJ wouldn't tap. Gave AJ the belt. AJ used the belt on Kurt. They both turned heel. AJ as a heel is usually a good thing. Him with Ric Flair could be a awesome thing. So that was good. Thumbs up there. This was definitely the best thing. This whole thing was the best thing on the pay-per-view, bar none, on a pay-per-view that, to me, just like I said, it felt very lackluster. Even though that was very good, it wasn't something where I was like, oh, cool. And it wasn't like I needed to didn't make me feel like I needed to turn to Impact, if that's what the goal was. It did feel very much like this whole show. It felt like a WWE show. So a low-rent WWE show, because even more than TNA kind of tends to do, because there were far too many skits backstage, there were far too many promos, and it didn't feel any different from a WWE show, which you need to be. As much as I'm sure Hogan and Bischoff don't think so, they definitely need to be different from the WWE. For those of you who don't know, and I'm not meaning this in a bad way, but Gabe Sapolsky went out and put on his new promotion, Evolve, had their show the other night. And one of the gripes that people had was that it didn't feel any different from any other indie show in the Northeast. It didn't feel like it was any different. It was like, why should I go to this show instead of, ROH or Jersey All Pro or any of the other stuff that happens in the Northeast? It didn't make them feel like they needed to spend their money on that as opposed to something else. And I think it's very relevant. I think it's relevant for this as well. Maybe doing a show like this will bring in more casual fans. Maybe. I don't think so, because there was nothing different enough on this show to make people say, ooh, we'll bring in the casual fans. Maybe if you bring in Ken Anderson, and then on Impact, you bring out, Rob Van Dam, so that it makes it look like this is the place to be, so that fans psychologically start thinking, oh, TNA is where it's at. Everyone's going to TNA. That must be, the place that they want to wrestle, so why don't I watch TNA? That's the types of things they need to do. I don't think they did any of that on this show. And I definitely think the Morley Daniels thing, I shake my head at that. I don't know why you would do that myself, unless you're going to push Daniels out. I know some people would say, Morley, whatever. I don't know. I mean, I don't get that. But anyways, that would be my point to the show, is it didn't feel any different. And not that that's a bad thing overall, the grading of the show, because I just didn't feel like the show was very fun to watch. I thought it was just kind of there. Main event was really good, but I don't think the main event was good enough to save the show, because even though you had good stuff on the undercard, it still felt very flat. The only thing I thought actually felt like enjoyable watching, that wasn't just, oh well, that's good, which is different from wow, that's good. It was like, oh well, that's a good match. Would be the Pope Wolfe match, which was but there was so much other stuff that just you felt like you were having to drag your way through, that it just wasn't worth it. So overall, I don't think this was a good pay-per-view at all. I give it a 6.75, and that's probably, actually, in my opinion, kind of overrating it a bit. And I'm only giving it that because of the main event. I thought the main event was really good, but I really don't think this was a good pay-per-view, even though it had a lot of good stuff on it. It was like the the parts of the pay-per-view were not as good as the whole of the pay-per-view. If that makes any sense. I'm sure people will say, "Oh, you're just bitching about TNA," but really I'm not. It's true, a criticism. I just felt like it was a flat show and not a very good show. So, but you guys will think what you think. So, why do I even worry about it? But anyways, that's it. I'm out. Have a good one, and later.